What's going on, y'all? Episode 16, Let's Be Real podcast. Welcome in. Man, we got a great show for you today. Obviously, going over what we got, the games coming up this week, going over some of the hot topics, and really just one topic that we had this last week that came out. And then, as always, giving y'all the top five that I see coming in this week, and then kind of that underrated watch of the week as far as like a game that I think you all might be interested in that might not be one of those premier games. And so, look, as always, man, we're going to start with we got our wine, man. So, look, I'm actually finishing up a glass of a wine I've already gave y'all, of a Moon X. So I'm not going to recommend that one. Instead, look, with the holidays coming up, Thanksgiving next week, I want to give y'all a recommendation for what I'm going to be drinking. Look, it's I've had it before, had it last Thanksgiving. It's become a staple on Thanksgivings for me now. And so it's actually same company. I've had them on before, but it's going to be the Century Oaks. So same one. That's that Housley wine from the one of the Maori sisters. I can't remember which one right now, but um, yeah. So I think the last one I showed y'all was the Petite Syrah. This one's gonna be their Old Vine Zinfandel. And man, as far as just pairing well with that Thanksgiving turkey, things like that, I'm not a big turkey fan, but that wine makes me look forward to some turkey. And so it is going to be bold. It's going to be on the drier side, but you're going to get some red fruits, some oak, and I'm telling y'all, it pairs really well. I'll have the link in the description on YouTube and on Spotify. And so I promise y'all, you will not be disappointed. If you like red wine and you need something for Thanksgiving, it might not get here in time, but also will be great for Christmas. Look, it's a solid wine, and then I'm gonna get y'all a Christmas recommendation earlier, so that way y'all can order it. But man, definitely check it out. Like I said, if you like a bolder wine, drier wine, but looking for something that goes really well, and also, I mean, you could just sip on it. Like, it's a great wine I usually drink during dinner and then after dinner. So definitely go check them out, y'all. Um, Perfect. Look, we're gonna start. We're gonna start with the Thursday night game we had, and that's Steelers and Browns. And man, I mean, look, we talked about it on last episode going into the game. I didn't think there was a way the Steelers are going to lose that, but I did say that I didn't think Russ was going to play well. I thought this might be one of those games where you start hearing the rumblings of bringing Justin back. Uh, I don't think you're going to hear the rumblings yet. I don't think Russ played well, but we're going to dive into that game, man. So we're going to stick a lot with the Steelers side, mainly just because, I mean, the Browns, they're the Browns right now, man. They're not going to make the Super Bowl. There's nothing really to go into as far as them moving forward or anything. It's a great win for them. Shout out to Jameis. Obviously, big game for him, made some huge plays. And to go from, signing with this team that had Deshaun Watson and DTR ended up being the backup, and where he was an emergency quarterback, now coming in, getting the Browns 2 wins, one of them being over the Steelers. Great job to him, man. Hopefully he gets rewarded like some of these other players who go to these teams and come off the bench, or go to these teams and get a chance. And hopefully he gets a nice little contract next year, somebody looking for just kind of a stabilizing quarterback, which is kind of weird to call Jameis a stabilizer, but y'all know what I mean. So now that we got the Browns out of the way, man, look, Steelers, we're going to dive into them, because after this game, I think one of the biggest questions we got to ask ourselves is, are the Steelers true contenders this year? And for me, the answer is going to be no. It's going to be no. And it's nothing. Look, I think they're on kind of maybe an outside bubble of contenders, but from what I've seen, as far as their offense goes, I just can't trust that team can win three playoff games, because I can't see them getting a 1 seed and getting a bye. So I just can't see it. Now their defense is incredible. Their defense, if they could find a way to do it, it's going to be by that defense just carrying the way and then winning games like they have been, man. Winning those games, 17-13. So it's I can't see them as true contenders for as far as a Super Bowl. I think they're a dangerous team. Like, obviously, you don't want to play them because TJ Watt's a game wrecker. And I mean, when with how they play and how they shorten the game, there's going to be it's going to be a close game just because of the lack of possessions you're going to get. And when you have a shorter game, can you end up losing? Look, we saw it happen to the Chiefs last week. Yes, you can. And so, could I see them winning a playoff game? Yes. Could I see them winning 3 playoff games? No. And so, to me, they aren't true contenders. And that starts with their quarterback, man. Like, that's the biggest thing. And that's where we're going to move into now is, look, Russ. I said last week, I thought this was a game he was going to struggle against that Browns defense. And for large stretches, he did. And it's kind of, look, he came out of it. His stats didn't look terrible. You know, he had a good completion percentage, put up good yards, had a touchdown pass, but also had just a terrible fumble. And it's a lot of feast and famine with Russ. And it's what it's been, going back to, I talked about it after that first game he had, is, for the first half of that football game, he was terrible. And then, snow starts coming down. He ends up getting a couple deep shots down the field, and it basically saves his day. But up until that point where, second half, he did not look great. And you even saw when they ended up pulling him out for a couple plays. They put in Justin, and that's really when the Steelers kind of got that spark that got them rolling on offense, is when Justin Fields came in. He had a big first down run. And so it's clear that the OC in Pittsburgh likes Justin a lot more than he likes Russ. And I think we end up starting to see more packages with Justin like we did this last week. And again, like I said, I think we're too deep into the year now where Russ gets benched. But it's part of, again, why I don't think they can be true contenders, because I just can't trust that quarterback where he's just so big play dependent, but also mistake prone. And so for those reasons, I'm out on the Steelers as contenders. I'm out on Russ. Not that I was ever in on Russ, but yeah. And then lastly, what we're going to end with, man, is Pickens. Because come on, bro. So for anybody who didn't see, George Pickens after the game basically came out and said, yeah, we're a better team, but because of the weather, that favored the Browns, and so that's why they won. They won because of the weather. We're a better team, though. And now, granted, the Steelers, they are definitely a better team. I don't think anybody would deny that. I don't think Browns fans would deny that. But, like, you can't blame the weather, man. Like, that's inexcusable. Especially when you're talking about the fact that, like, it's the same weather that would be in Pittsburgh. Like, that's y'all's, like, it's the same weather. So what you're saying to me is like, oh, if we get a home game, we might lose because of the weather. And that is playoff weather. If we know anything about what we've seen in previous playoffs and in teams, and especially, those AFC teams over the years, it's cold. It snows. Weather conditions are bad. And so to me, if I'm in any team that I'm playing playing against them in the playoffs, and it's weather gets bad, I feel like I already have a mental advantage over George Pickens and even over that Steelers team, because I'm like, oh, they don't want to play in this, which is crazy because, again, that is their weather. And so from Pickens, it's not a good look, man. Again, inexcusable, one, to even say that, whether you feel it or not, whether it's said internally or not, but to say that to reporters and just put that out there when it's, again, the same weather you would normally deal with at home and the weather you're going to deal with in the playoffs, it's just not a good look. And it's coming off of you fighting a guy in the back of the end zone on a Hail Mary that you never even went for. And so just from the last 10 seconds of the game, or not even last 4 seconds of the game, I think it was, to the post-game interview that he had, George Pickens, F for all of that. And so, obviously Steelers now still in control of their destiny as far as in the division, but they got to get some wins going out of here because look, Baltimore's still there and they're not going away. And so the Steelers are far from locked into that one seed. They do have the tiebreaker over the Ravens, but again, it's just you still got to go in and handle business. And look, we're going to stay with these cold weather teams, man. We're going to move into our games this week. And we got some good ones, man. We got some bad ones. I ain't going to lie. And you're going to see it. I'm going to talk about it when we get to the those kind of underrated watches for the week. It was tough. But we got some good ones. And so the first one we're going to start with is Bears-Vikings. Another divisional game for the Bears. That's a big kind of look for their calendar as they end the year is a lot of divisional games. And Vikings, man, look, that whole division is tough. Vikings, another tough team. And the biggest things I want to look for here, because I think the Bears, I think they're pretty much done as far as playoff hopes go. I mean, it would take them having an incredible end of their year, and it would take a massive letdown from a lot of those other teams that are in that division. And so biggest things I'm looking for is one, can Caleb build on that momentum he got going last week? And so look, we saw him kind of get rolling last week, no touchdown passes, but made it look the offense, they got him some easier looks. He used his legs more. And that's all I really want to see. I just want to see continued progression out of Caleb at this point. And if you're the Bears, that's what you want to see. You want to see that continued progression. Now, if you win, awesome. But the bigger thing here for the Bears especially is you got to see growth. You got to see just Caleb getting into rhythm, whether you win or lose. I would much rather the Bears lose a 27-30 game and Caleb has, 2 touchdowns, 300 yards than, the Bears winning a 13-10 game and Caleb throws 150 yards, no touchdowns and a pick, right? And so with that, I need to see Caleb continuing to roll. And, you see what happens with the season. Like I said, more than likely you're cooked for the rest of the year. You're not getting to the playoffs, but you never know. We've seen crazier things. And then on the flip side, man, the Vikings, look, they are in this playoff hunt and they're one of those teams, great record. I think they're 8-2 right now. And so for them, they're kind of, to me, it's another Steelers question is, are they real contenders? And so I think this is a game where they can kind of come out and show that track they're on, whether they're a contender or not. And I think that was kind of it. Look, I didn't think it was going to be that coming into the game for the Steelers, but it clearly is the case. But with the Vikings, I need to see Sam Darnold play well because the last few weeks he's been a little shaky. And so I need him to play well. I need to see him play well against a defense that we've seen be good. And so with that, I mean, the Vikings, the defense, that Brian Flores defense has been great all year. Couple little blunder games here and there, but for the most part, he has done an excellent job with that defense, and they have been one of the best defenses throughout the year. And so obviously that's going to be one of those challenging parts for Caleb. But from the Vikings perspective, I think they have a defense that is contention worthy of Super Bowl. Again, it's going to come back to them, just like the Steelers is. I know they have great weapons. Look, you got JJ, Addison. You got they have great weapons. It's going to come down to the quarterback for me. And these last few weeks, Sam Darnold hasn't shown me contender level quarterback play. like he did earlier in the season. And so with that, this game is going to be big for them. And as far as whether I really view them as contenders going into the postseason or as a team where I'm like, yeah, they might get a win because, Justin Jefferson might have a great game and that defense gets some stops, gets some turnovers. But yeah, so we'll have to kind of see how that plays out for him. But I think this is going to be the game that's going to show me that. And so look, we're going to stay one team in that division. We're going 49ers and Packers. So look, another big game. And look, we're going to start with the Niners, man. And another game where I said last week was one of those must wins, like not a literal must win in the sense like they're eliminated if they don't win, but a must win as far as like just even keeping hope alive. And not only that, I said it had to be they had to look good doing it. Obviously, we didn't see either of those things. And so at this point now, the 49ers, it's just survival mode because I don't know what the math would say on a loss, but I have to assume, I don't have to assume, I know a loss just, again, drives that chances of them getting to the playoffs lower. And at this point, it's just about salvaging the season, and we talked about what that's going to look like for Purdy and his contracts going into the offseason. I think that's pretty much locked in with where it's at, like we talked about last episode. But at this point, it's just trying to kind of string some wins together, and it's going to be tough because they got a schedule coming up. The Packers, with them, I could see them winning just because, and we're going to talk about the Jordan Love on it here in a minute, but Jordan Love is prone to want to let teams beat him. And so even if you get this win, man, you're still down to the Cardinals, who you'll face later in the year, as far as who leads that division. But look, their next 6 is Bills, Bears, Rams, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals. That is 4 or 3 for sure playoff teams. Another possible playoff team that's a division game. The Dolphins, who we assume if Tua was healthy the whole year, would be a playoff team. And the Bills might be the best team in football right now. So, and the Bears, you have the Bears there too, where it's, depending on what Caleb looks like this week and next week. If they're rolling, what does that look like? So, no real kind of gimme games on their calendar to end the season. And so, you're lucky if you go 3-3 with that, which puts you at about 500 for the year, which means you're going to miss the playoffs. And that's kind of what I'm seeing here. Especially, I think a loss basically is the nail in the coffin for them. Like, that's a wrap. And again, I thought that was kind of the case last week. So I'm interested to see on what they look like coming out. Do they feel like they still have a chance? Are they going to come out and show that they're going to try to make a push? Or are they going to come out thinking like I'm thinking is, yeah, we're pretty much done? And on the other side, man, look, like I said, Jordan Love, that's going to be the key for the Packers. Jordan Love, will he not lose you the game? And I think, again, I said it last week, he plays a clean football game. I think they win fairly, not easily, but I don't think it should be a question of whether they win. But he's got to play clean. And it's just he has not shown like that he can do that. At least not often. And so could I see the Packers losing this game because of a Jordan Love ridiculous throw that leads to a pick in his own territory? Absolutely. And so biggest thing, again, for them is just Jordan Love has to play clean. If he plays clean, I think this game should be, open, shut, get out of there with a win, start looking ahead to next week. But again, man, it's just, again, not a big Jordan Love believer. But I think they get out of this. I think he obviously, I think he's going to make a mistake, but I don't think he makes enough mistakes or a crucial enough mistake for the Niners to win this game. I may be wrong, and I wouldn't be shocked if I was, but that's just how I'm looking at this game. And it really, again, it just comes down to Jordan Love for the Packers and how clean he can play. And look, we're going to going from the NFC North, going to stay in that NFC West from the Niners. We're going right into the Cardinals and Seahawks, man. And so look, another big division game. And this is what we're getting at the end of the year. And it's great because it just means we get so many good games that are like, that have playoff implications throughout the whole schedule, right? And so obviously, Seahawks coming off that big win against the Niners. And my biggest question is one, is there that kind of emotional hangover from that big win over the Niners, right? So if you're the Seahawks, it's, we're back to work. And as we've seen teams in the past, they get a big win like that in the fashion that they got it in against the team they got it in. And there's a little bit of that slow start coming out next week. And I think even more so with the Seahawks, you might see that because Geno is just so up and down. And so that's the big question for them. Again, it's like the Packers. It's very quarterback dependent on which Geno am I going to get, right? I know the defense is going to be what it is. I know the wide receivers and the talent he has on the outside. I know the running backs. Which Geno is showing up? Am I going to get good Geno or am I going to get bad Geno where he's, 3 yards over every receiver's head, open throws, missing those? Or am I going to get putting it on the money and tight windows Geno? And so I think against that Cardinals defense, who, again, definitely not the best defense, but maybe a little bit better than we had expected, although still not good. I think this is a game where, look, if they can kind of get over that emotional hangover, that win, or don't come in with that kind of sluggishness, I think this could be a shootout. Because look, the weapons on both sides are incredible, and so I'm hoping that's what we get. I'm not sure we will. I'm thinking this is probably going to be one of those sluggish starts, Geno not firing on all cylinders, looking bad. And look, against the Cardinals, we're going to talk about them. That Cardinals offense, man, they can put up points. Kyler has been great this year. Marvin Harrison Jr., James Conner running the ball. And so that Cardinals offense, I mean, they're rolling. Look, first in the division right now, another division game where they can put some separation from the Seahawks, who I think are in third right now, or third, either second or third. But get some separation from them. If the Niners lose, get some separation from them. Depending on the Rams, get some separation from them and really kind of looked at finishing off and winning this division. And look, it's a winnable schedule that they have. Look, right? They got the Seahawks, but following that, Vikings, you get the Seahawks again, Patriots, Panthers, Rams, Niners. So look, Patriots and Panthers, you should get wins there, right? And then the other four, even if you split the other four, you're looking at 4-2. That should be enough to get you through the division. And so I know everyone's kind of pointing at that 49ers game at the end like that might be for the division. I don't think the Niners are going to be able to get there. The one I'm really looking at as far as like might be for the division is that Rams game the week before. Because I think the Rams, depending on what they do, they might have a shot, which, look, that could end this week as well against Philadelphia, and we'll talk about that. But I think that Rams game might end up being the important one for the division. And then again, you got two against the Seahawks. So, look, the Seahawks can pull out some magic. We'll see what happens. That division is still wide open. But again, I think I can just, from looking at their schedule, how they're playing, I think the Cardinals do kind of end up running away with this division. And, yeah, it'll be fun to see them in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to really beat anybody, but at least we'll see some offense from them. And so going from seeing a game that might be a ton of offense and great to a game that might be the opposite, low scoring. And as Ravens and Chargers, it's the Monday night game. And man, Ravens, man, what are y'all doing? So what I need to see here is just who are the Ravens going to be in this game? Because we've already seen just over the last few weeks, the year, that they don't really know who they are. They don't know who they want to lean on. And funny enough, I know I've been saying Derrick Henry needs to be the one. Derrick Henry needs to be the one. You play on the Chargers defense. They're good against the run. They're good against the pass. And I think this might be a game where the Chargers defensively look to stop Derrick Henry. And so, granted, look, I still think the Ravens' best way to win is Lamar getting it, turning, and handing that thing to Derrick Henry and letting him run 20, 25 times. But I think what's going to end up happening is they're not gonna get too much out of that running game to start the game, and it's gonna turn real Lamar heavy real quick. And so I think this could be a game where we do see Lamar put up again some of those crazy video game numbers that we've seen him put up before, and it gets him back in the MVP conversation. It gets everyone back on the Ravens train as far as like, oh my God, yeah, no, this is the team we thought they were. This is the most dangerous team in the NFL. And I think we get one of those kind of performances from Lamar where he puts up these crazy numbers, and that's what you're going to start hearing going up in this game. And so from the Chargers perspective, man, we already know what the Chargers and Harbaugh want to do. They want to hand that ball to Dobbins, play just tough, just punch you in the mouth football. But I think the real key to this game for the Chargers, and really what's going to determine who wins this game, is those Chargers receivers versus the Ravens secondary. Because for as bad as the Ravens defense has been, like their run defense is still good. Now, granted, that might just be because their secondary is so bad that everyone's just throwing the ball against them. But they have a solid run defense, and so it's all going to be. I think what it's going to come down to is those Charger receivers and Justin Herbert making plays against that Ravens secondary. And can they just make more plays against that secondary than Lamar and the Ravens can make against the Chargers secondary, which is a solid secondary. And so, look, I'm leaning Chargers in this game just because, again, I don't trust that Ravens secondary in the slightest. And I think, these games that get Lamar heavy, they have just a bigger margin of error for the Ravens. And so for that, I'm leaning Chargers. But again, I also think Lamar's going to have a big game. And so, again, this one's going to be tough to call. I'm going to lean Chargers. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if the Ravens come out and have everybody thinking they should be considered the best team in the league and number one in the top 5, right? And so, we'll have to see how that goes. But that's what I think. That's what it's going to come down to for me, I think, is just the Chargers receivers versus that Ravens secondary. And look, speaking of just weapons and receivers against the secondary, we're going to go into the last big game that I think, and that is Rams-Eagles. And this should be a great one. Obviously, y'all know my team is the Eagles. I do like the Rams, but obviously I'm rolling my Eagles, and so we're not always going to finish with them, but if there's a big game that they're involved in, chances are they're going to be either the last game we talk about or second to last, depending on any other big games that week. And so, look, for the Eagles, man, it's simple. Like, it's simple, but it's not. So, one, can that defense continue to hold up and dominate against that Rams team? And so biggest thing is, look, we know what the Rams have as far as weapons with Puka and Cooper Kupp. And so it's going to be, look, Cooper DeJean, Mitchell both those guys have been insane in the secondary, which is crazy because, look, DB is a position where you usually don't see a lot of rookies come in and be great. And so to see that they did that, look, I was on DeJean, especially, I was very wrong. And so, look, props to him. Vic Fangio, he's got that defense looking good. Again, wrong about that. I'm not gonna say I'm right about a lot, but there's a good bit I'm right about. But for whatever reason, the Eagles this year, I have been wrong about, except for one person, which is Sirianni. But anyways, we'll get to that. But so just how do those rookies and how does that secondary hold up against two elite receivers and an elite quarterback in Stafford. And then again, generating that pass rush, I think, is going to be probably the biggest thing, because if they can't generate that, man, Matt Stafford can sling it. And, with those weapons, it's going to be tough. It's already tough to hold those guys, but you give him any extra time in the pocket, then it could get dark fast for that defense. And so I think the biggest thing is going to be generating that pass rush and that secondary holding up. And yeah, we'll see kind of how that works out, but that's my biggest concern coming into this game, is just that secondary and that pass rush against Stafford and those receivers. Also, I just look. It's always going to come it in a close game. It's always going to come down to this, and I think this is where the Eagles are at a disadvantage in most games. But it's the coaching matchups, and so to me, this is a huge mismatch coaching wise with Sirianni and McVay. And so my fear is, and this is my fear going into playoff games, is that I think McVay as a coach can win you games, and I think Sirianni as a coach will lose you games. And so in a close game, my fear is that this game is close coming down to the end. And it's just, I trust McVay more than I trust Sirianni as far as executing down the stretch. And so we'll have to see if that ends up popping up. Hopefully, again, we get that pass rush, that secondary holds up, and we're not in that situation. But that's my biggest kind of secondary fear coming into this game against a Rams team who's, look, they're playing for their playoff lives right now. And so they have real reason to win. And look, the Eagles were not out of the rough by any means, as far as, we got the win against the Commanders and took lead of the division. But we don't have a very big cushion. We still have another game against the Commanders, and we've still got a few tough games. I mean, granted, we got some lollipops, thankfully, because we play in the NFC East. But when you look at our schedule moving forward, man, you still got games against, you got the Commanders again, you got the Ravens, and you got the Steelers. And so 3 tough teams, 3 losable games, and you also got 3 games that are, they are what they are. We got the Panthers, Cowboys, and Giants. And so should be 3 wins, but could easily be 3 losses. But, I think if you look at this, if you can go, 4-2, you should lock up the division. But again, man, it's just, I think ever since last year, I can't trust this team ending the season until I see them end the season. And so I think, obviously more talented this year. I think the amount of talent we have makes it harder to lose to those teams like the Panthers, Cowboys, and Giants. But again, I've seen this story where, we end the year on a down note and take some losses we shouldn't take. And so I think we avoid that this year just because the added talent we have on the team and how they're playing. And I don't think Sirianni can mess it up against bad teams. But against those good teams, man, again, and this week, I think that could be it could be tough, a couple tough nights. But and then look, also the one thing, the kind of the added little wrinkle in this for the Eagles is we have Devontae Smith out. Now, whenever we haven't been fully healthy on offense, as far as like the weapons go, the offense looks a little bit worse, coupled with first quarter struggles against this Rams team, man. The game could get out of hand real quick. And so, look, you got to be able to generate some offense, got to be able to hand that ball to Saquon and just like they've been doing, limit Jalen's throws, increase Saquon's touches, and just limiting mistakes that we can make. And that defense has got to hold up, And so, again, I think I would almost go extremely Saquon heavy that first quarter, just get some points on the board, because I think that Rams team, again, if they're clicking on Sunday, man, it's they make a lot of good secondaries to have some tough days. So hopefully, man, we get a pass rush, we get that secondary stays strong, and we avoid all that. But again, man, this is a big game for both teams with big playoff implications on each one. So should be a good game, though. I'm excited to watch that one. And look, we're gonna move into our kind of one topic that we've had for this week, and that is Daniel Jones being cut by the Giants. Look, I've been saying I said they shouldn't have signed him to that deal. I've been saying that it's time they should have benched him. You know, obviously cutting him, benching him, whatever it was, it makes a lot of sense because he's got that injury guarantee where if he goes out and gets hurt, you got a guaranteed year of his deal. And so I think obviously to avoid that, you're still going to take the dead cap hit. Um, but I'm guessing, I mean, either way you were going to take that, whether he was on the bench, it's not technically a dead cap, but basically as if he's not playing. And just the way he went out though is kind of the strangest part, right? Is he comes into practice and he runs safety on the practice squad, which I always figured he was a tight end. Shout out to Bob on that because he hates when I said that. But no, like it's just again, you have your backup at the time backup quarterback playing safety on the practice squad, and so after that goes out into the front office, asked to be cut. They allow him to because why not? No one's going to trade for him. It is what it is. Now he can go out, figure out what he wants to do. But yeah, just the being the safety on the practice squad, just weird. And then you had a lot of teammates coming out for him. I mean, one of their captains, the lineman, whose name I can't remember right now, but he even came out and said, "I don't understand what we're doing if we're cutting the best quarterback we have on the team." Now, look, I don't think Daniel Jones is a good quarterback by any means, but Tommy DeVito, I don't think is a good quarterback. And then I know they had just brought in somebody. Who was it this year? It was it Locke? Yeah, Drew Lock. And so again, just a weird situation as far as um, you bring in Drew Lock, who to me I was like, okay, yeah, they're probably going to go to Drew Lock about halfway in the season. Obviously missed it by a few weeks, but that's what would make sense. That's why he signed there for I think he got like 10, $11 million to be the backup, which hefty price tag for a backup. But you pay him that because obviously he's going to come in when Danny Jones is sitting on the bench or in this case cut. And instead you go with Tommy DeVito, who I mean we've seen him play. We know he's not a good quarterback. They got some wins that were very defense led last year, but unless Drew Lock just looked that terrible in practice, I mean, it makes no sense to me. And so you have, the quotes coming out asking why they cut the best player. And so, look, there might be some real dissension in that Giants organization. And this all started last year. Yeah, last offseason with the whole Saquon thing. Ever since that, where, it's just miscommunications from front office, ownership, and so you don't get Saquon signed. And prior to that, you have the room split on Daniel Jones and you give him this big contract. Just the way the Giants have been run these last few years is terrible. And so, look, I think just like the Jets GM, Giants GM should be fired after this year. And while, look, I think Daboll is a great coach, sometimes it's just time to move on. And look, they're obviously going to go into the draft this year, draft a quarterback. And as great as I think Daboll is, and look, my biggest thing that I've always said with anybody that you fire, and this isn't even just in sports, this is in any industry. If you're looking to fire somebody, and your competition would sign that person quickly, then it's probably not a good idea to fire the person, right? So I think Dayball is going to find a job real quick on an NFL team, and but again, I also just think when you bring in a rookie QB, I want I don't want to have like we're going to see with Caleb this year, right? Or this offseason. I don't want him to have his second year in the league be with his second head coach and probably his second OC. I would rather just start it fresh, and that's what I think the Giants should do. As great as I think Dayball is, I'd get rid of him, get rid of the GM, hire a new GM, hire a look for one of these young OCs maybe who can come in with your rookie quarterback and let them kind of just mold together right out the gate. That way you've got a few year window with them at least to know. And so for Daniel Jones, man, I think look, he's going to follow the same kind of path as Sam Darnold, Baker, Geno, these guys. He's just got to go find another team to, go be a backup on, learn. I would say, look, honestly, who I would say, and again, this is predicated on a lot. If Darnold and if the Vikings don't end up signing Darnold to a bigger deal, or if they end up flaming out and don't want to keep him, that's a spot I would go. If I'm Daniel Jones, I go to Kevin O'Connell. I know McVay with the Rams has been floated out there as far as a backup there. Any of those guys, McVay, Shanahan, O'Connell, Mike McDaniels in Miami, some of those guys where, look, the team is going to be contending. I think, look, the Dolphins would be a great one too because of Tua's injury history. But go to a place where you're going to get one of these great offensive coaches. You're going to be in games where if the starter does go down, they're meaningful games and you can make an impact and show, other teams what it looks like. But that would be my suggestion as far as if I'm Daniel Jones' agent, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for one of these great offensive head coaches, go sit behind one of these teams that should be playoff teams. And, if you get some time in there because of an injury, perfect. And so that's what I think would be next. But look, now we're going to wrap up here. We got our top 5 and we got our underrated watch. The underrated watch, like I said, it's going to be a little different this week just because of the difficulty it was picking the games. But top 5, man, here's what we're going to do. And look, I know some of y'all going to be mad about it, but it's what it is. So top 5, number 1. Actually, no, I like this. Let's start this backwards. So number 5, and not moving from last week, we got the Chargers. Look, I love the way Harbaugh and that defense is playing. I love the way the offense and that running game is. Justin Herbert is looking, they've taken a lot off his plate, but he looks great when they need him to be. And so for that, they stay at 5, obviously with a big matchup this week against the Ravens. Look, this top 5 right now, it's a solid top 5. So hard to see you move up, but if you lose, you're definitely moving out. And so number 4, we got, staying in the same place again, we got the Eagles. So again, man, I think they're playing great football. I think that they're probably, I don't even think actually, to me, they are the second best team in the NFC right now. And with that defense humming like it is, with Saquon running the way he is, with how the offense is kind of starting to roll, with giving Saquon more touches, taking more off Hurts' plates, I love that. And so for that, got them staying at 4. Again, just the thing that scares me with them is the head coaching. But with their talent level, again, it's hard to not have them in the top 5 when they're winning. And look, 3, the other team in the NFC, the Lions. And so, look, Lions, man, got them at 3. This is where it's going to get controversial. But look, the Lions are great at if you don't come ready to play football, and I think that was the quote actually from somebody. But look, if you're a bad team, they will roll you. Like they will roll you if you're a bad team. And so, against more kind of contenderish teams, like we saw the Goff 5 interception game, and that's going to stick. That still sticks in my head even after a big win against another bad team. Um, so this week, I don't think they're going to really have the opportunity to change my mind on that because I don't view the Colts as a great team. And so Lions to me locked in at 3. Number 2, the Bills. Yep. So Bills coming off that win in Kansas City. Josh Allen putting on the cape. Um, to me, it's obviously, man, look, on any day they can beat any team in the NFL, but on any day they can lose to any team in the NFL because while they have limited Josh's mistakes, he can still be mistake prone. And I'm just looking at this, especially now with the top 5. I'm looking at this as who am I looking at as far as in a playoff game, in a Super Bowl, who do I look at as the team to beat? And that leads me just because I've seen the Bills in playoff games. I've seen Josh Allen in playoff games and big games shrink some. That's why they're staying at 2. And it's why, look, number 1, Chiefs are staying at 1. No, they have a loss. They had won 15 straight. There's going to be a loss at some point. Look, they hadn't lost since Christmas. They almost went a full calendar year since losing. One loss isn't going to change kind of if I think they're the team to beat in the NFL. And that's what this is. To me, this top 5 is who at number 1, who is the team to beat? And right now, that is still the Chiefs. 10-1. 10-1, but 1 loss. And look, still have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. Pacheco looks like he's going to be coming back at some point. Hollywood Brown looks like he's going to be coming back at some point, possibly now. And I just think that obviously I can't see them losing this week against the Panthers. So I can't see them dropping down to 2, especially with the Bills on a bye. But again, to me, it's just they're the team to beat. They've got the best quarterback in the league. They got the best coach in the league, one of the best defenses in the league that had a terrible game. But I also go back to, like I talked about last episode with it, is a lot of weird stuff that they did. I don't know if they're just not wanting to give up too much as far as in case they meet the Bills in the playoffs, which I can understand. And again, offensively did some weird things, defensively did some weird things, but they showed that when it was time to win, they marched right down the field and scored. And so for that, man, we're going Chiefs stay at number 1. And then moving on, underrated watch of the week. This is where we get a twist, man. I'm actually going to give you 2 because I don't like, out of the 4 teams that are going to be in this, I only like 2 teams and they're playing in different games. And so first is the Lions and Colts, man. Look, Anthony Richardson can be fun to watch, whether he's breaking runs, throwing deep balls to his team, or throwing the ball to the other team. It's going to be fun to watch. The Lions, like I said, the Lions undress bad teams on national television and anywhere else. And so the Colts, I think, are a bad team. I think the Lions, it's fun to look. It's always fun to watch them up 40 and run in, double reverse hook and ladders to their center, right? Like just weird stuff. Like it's always fun to see that. So the Lions have become just a fun watch for me, even though they played this very like physical brand of football that you would typically not associate with being fun. And so I would say Lions, Colts, and then the second one, man, Bucks and Giants. And biggest thing with this is, man, look, the Buccaneers, the Falcons didn't push away enough to lock in this division with the injuries that the Bucks had, and Mike Evans is coming back. And so, look, I think we get, obviously, the Giants, they're probably mailing it in at this point. Your defensive star is unhappy. You're rolling with, well, most of us thought is your third string quarterback. And, you probably got the GM and the head coach on a hot seat. So, um, yeah, I think they're what they are. But the Bucks, man, Mike Evans coming back, Baker's still dealing. I think they might put some points up this week and make it a real race in that NFC South. And so those are my two underrated watches, man. Top five again: one Chiefs, two Bills, three Lions, four Eagles, and five we got the Chargers. Look, appreciate y'all as always. Go follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, subscribe on YouTube. Please like, comment, do all that stuff, man. Continue watching, continue supporting. I appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all next time.